Sort of along those same lines, we talk about the sports debate, and that becomes the next talking point of a transphobe, because it's never ending with transphobes. It's just you prove them wrong here, and all of a sudden it's, well, the next topic we'll talk about,
Right.
until you just don't have the energy. And so, what kind of advantages or disadvantages? Let's just nip this in the butt for all the transphobes watching. What kind of advantages or disadvantages would a trans person have entering a sports team matching their gender identity?
Wow. I know we talked about this before we came on camera. And I have got to say that when it comes down to sports, it's your dedication to your game. It is training. It is execution of technique, the way that you're coached to execute. It is practice, practice, practice. It is, and that's what wins the game at the end of the day. What I brought up to you, it was me, my experience pre-transitioning, and I was in the best shape of my life in this period of time. Whereas I had a very close friend who I played tennis with, who happened to be cisgendered female, and a student at Cal State Long Beach. And I'm gonna tell you, her technique, her dedication to her sport, the tennis team, and I'm a really good tennis player, and I do have a blazing forehand. She handled me quite easily. She was a good player, and I consider myself a very good player too. And me, being a guy at the time, with all the testosterone coursing through my system as nature was allowing, she still took me to school on that tennis court, and she beat me more often than I beat her. It is, it's your passion, it's your dedication, it's the amount of training that you put in is the results that you're going to yield. So I'm also, on the same token, saying that when a male to female takes cross-sex hormones, it does diminish your strength. It does. You do decrease in musculature. There are some things that we won't change. It won't change the bone density or anything else like that. But in my case specifically, I've noticed the edge that I've lost in throwing, because I still, like to throw a ball whenever I can. And I've gotten weaker with, weight training. I don't lift those weights that I once was capable of. I mean, in a dramatic fashion too, it's decreased. So I got to say, my strength has decreased a lot during the use of these past 4 years of cross-sex hormones. So it does its thing. It redistributes fat, puts it in places where cisgendered women have it, in the hips, in the breast and whatnot. Your skin becomes softer, etc. I mean, not that your skin being soft, has anything to do with, your sports performance, but I've got to say that this whole movement of banning young trans girls from cisgendered, female sports, is kind of a scare tactic, I think, that the right is using. And in as much as when you start tackling hormones, prepubescent, you're going to develop as a natural born female does. Okay. You're not going to get that initial, musculature that a male were had they, processed through, puberty. You're going to start to develop like a girl, and when you see that, you don't want to develop anymore as a male. So you're consciously inhibiting that. You're dieting and you're exercising to maintain that petite little body, or whatever. I never had that benefit. I went into puberty. I went into masculinity, the full range of maleness. Thankfully, like I said, I was blessed with features that aren't overwhelmingly male, probably more predominantly female. So with the enhancements, makeup and such, you could contour and highlight in certain ways that make you appear even more so. But yeah, the participation in sports is essential and should never be made about, gender. What the participation in sports is learning camaraderie, learning leadership, learning respect. So many other things that you can gain from playing sports. It's very important to all young children. So let's not separate, because Johnny has a birth certificate that says they were assigned male at birth. In Johnny's heart, Johnny is Joni, and it wants to be treated like Joni, wants to develop like Joni, whatever, So I think this whole scare tactic with allowing trans girls to compete is utter rubbish. It's just ridiculous.
Because it sounds to me like, from the way you put it, if anything, taking these hormones and so on, it puts you at a disadvantage if you were forced into the gender you were assigned at birth, sex you were assigned at birth, in a sport. And so it's almost like these people are trying to force a trans person to have a disadvantage in a way of like, no, you're not allowed to be a normal person and compete, and we're going to make you compete in the sport you have a disadvantage in, rather than competing in the sport that you would be like everyone else and be on the same level playing field. And it sounds to me like it's a lot more about technique in every sense of the word than, and
Absolutely.
Forgive me, it's sounds to me, not as a parent here, but it sounds to me like parents just get a little butthurt over,
you are right,
my kid didn't practice this hard, so now I'm going to sue the school because that person was trans.
Absolutely, Matt. Very well stated. You got it. Yeah, absolutely.
And with it, with the sports debate comes the infamous locker debate of, well, I don't want my daughter to be in a locker room with a man. It's like, again, no one's advocating for that, but it becomes a situation where schools have to deal with it now of, well, because trans people aren't allowed surgeries before 18, and that becomes the whole high school and middle school phase of sports. So they're not transitioned fully yet, and there's no legal way for them to do that.
Correct.
So they're going to have to enter a locker room for the pep talks and so on with the wrong body parts. And so how does the school deal with that? Like, is it a situation where it can be easily go into a stall to change instead of
Correct.
so on? But there's a lot of people who will also say trans people should have their own sporting teams entirely, or they should have their own locker rooms specifically for that one child in the school.
Wow. You don't want to pull that thread as far as, creating a whole sports league for transgender people.
And forgive me, that is not my personal opinion. I'm just trying to...
No. No, I know it's not your personal opinion. I know that it's a popular opinion out there, though, that, the locker room debate. And I got to tell you that, as a trans woman, if your interests lie in the same area that your schoolmates, are, you're with a bunch of girls who like boys. You have a trans girl who comes into your locker room who probably likes boys too. Doesn't care what you got going on down there. It doesn't matter to them. They are there to form a bond with you, to become a team, to become one. We're not interested in looking at your genitals. We may have questions about certain things because we need to know. So, by the same token, you're right. If there's that a level of no comfort, I go into a drawn, a little area with a drawn curtain or something like. Do your changing. It doesn't have to be, exposed like that. There are precautions, and I'm sure that the trans girl feels very conscious about what they got going on their body, and maybe they don't want you to see them as just as much as the parents don't want the young trans girl to see their daughter in various stages of undress or whatever. That's not the point. The point is you're there to win a volleyball game. You're there to win a softball game. You're there to bond and be accepted, genitalia aside,
I think there are plenty of ways for a school to deal with these situations and go, let's make that trans person feel as comfortable as possible, and we'll adapt to whatever they choose they want to do.
Yes.
Let's allow them to, and making the school aware of the situation is important with that.
Yeah, chances are that teammate is going to love you, just with that.
Still not enough rainbows? Click here to see more weekly episodes of Powered by Rainbows, Semester 4, only on MHP TV.